I'm joined now by the man who headed up the Olympic Games the last time they were here in the U.S., former governor of Massachusetts and, of course, Republican presidential nominee in 2012, Mitt Romney. Governor, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thanks, David. Good to see you.
I want to ask you about these security threats. Last weekend on the Sunday programs, the chair of the House Homeland Security Committee said about the games in Russia, he fears that something will detonate, something will blow up. Do you think the security concerns have been overblown?
No, I think they're very real. When you have the kind of specific threats that were leveled at the games, you have to take them very seriously. At the same time, I think Russia has shown, not only through the application of their security forces, but also through their intelligence work, that they have the capacity to keep the games reasonably safe. There's no such thing as a 100% guarantee, but I think at this stage people feel pretty comfortable that the games will be safe.
Where you've been critical of the Russian government is $50 billion that it spent to host these games in Sochi. And you wrote a really pointed op-ed about this week. I'll put a portion of it up on the screen for our viewers to see. You write, if a country wants to show off, what's the harm? Waste is harm, particularly when need is as great as it is. Harm occurs when a country spends more than it can afford to keep up appearances with big spenders. Harm occurs when a country is excluded from hosting an Olympics because it can't afford the fabulous frills. And harm occurs when the world's poor look in anguish at the excess. Time to limit that excess, and why?
Well, I really think so, because you don't need to spend $50 billion, as Russia has, or as China did, to put on Olympic sport. Olympic sport can be demonstrated at $2 or $3 billion. And all that extra money can be used to do some very important things in terms of fighting poverty and fighting disease around the world. That's what we really ought to be using those resources for, as opposed to wasting them in many cases to show off a country, or I think more cynically, to show off the politicians in a country, and to take money from some people so that politicians can be puffed up and be shown around the world, I think is something which is very distasteful at a time when there's so much poverty, so much need.
You think Putin views it as worth it? I assume he's among the politicians you're talking about being puffed up on the world stage.
Oh, I think there's no question, but that the politicians who take this money and spend $50 billion to host the world for TV appearances, I think they think it's worth it, or they wouldn't spend it.
Is it still
a lot of that money certainly could be going into corruption as well, and paying off various folks. It's a very unsavory thing, and I think the International Olympic Committee is going to have to take action to limit